Hey everyone, thanks for joining for, gosh, what is it? April's Shred Strong Chat. Today we're talking about fueling before, during, and after your bike rides. So let's dive in. First things first, I know you all have been diving in on the lessons in the app and with the challenge for April. Awesome work with that. I know it's kind of a little bit of a stair step way, building the awareness first around what you're eating and how you're eating now, currently. That way, you can become more aware of what changes you might need to make going forward when it comes to fueling before, during, and after your bike ride. So, before you ride, let's talk about that first of all, because this is going to be the most important thing because your muscles are going to want to utilize what's already in their stores. Okay. They can only contain a certain amount of carbohydrate, glycogen stores in order to burn. All right. Once those are all burned, then they start going after muscle and brain and liver and all this other stuff, which is a whole other slew of information that I won't really cover today because I really want the focus to be on how to do this. Okay. So before you ride, aim to have a balanced meal. And by balanced, basically, we mean just a nice representation of a basic meal that has carbs, proteins, and fats. Proteins are going to be your generic things that you consider proteins, dairy products, eggs, meats, things like that. It could be plant-based proteins and so on and so forth. Now, and also, if you're especially plant-based eater, these can also include things such as beans. Now, beans, of course, also have carbohydrates, so it does get a little bit more complicated there, but just consider those beans a form of protein, and that would be good. Same thing with tofu, even though it has carbohydrates in it, it's fine. It's going to be your protein source, okay? So, something that's balanced, you're going to have some protein, so things like that, dairy, meats, all of that, seafood, whatever it is for you, okay, depending on your allergies and preferences. And then carbs. So carbs, you're thinking about complex and simple carbs, such as, oats for oatmeal or rice. Rice is a really common one. It's easy to digest, especially white rice. It's going to be more on the simpler side and easier to digest than brown rice and wild rice and things that have a little bit more grain in them. Um, so you're going to include some carbs and then fats. Fats are going to be the tasty things. So we're talking like dressings, any types of nut butters or avocado, olive oil, any oils, basically anything that makes it taste flavorful and nice and kind of gives it a little bit of that fatty feel in your mouth. Okay, just kind of gross way to put it. Other thing with carbs, and I'm blanking. I just got done with therapy, so I apologize. But another thing with carbs to consider are going to be things like fruits, potatoes, starches, even corn and whatnot. These are going to be again carbohydrate sources. Are they the best carbohydrate sources? Immediately before a bike ride? Not always, but are they an excellent source of carbohydrates to fuel your body in a regular meal that you're having 3, 4 times a day? Yes, yes, they are. Because again, when you're combining carbohydrates with proteins, you're really helping to balance your blood sugar as effectively as possible. That way, you don't have fluctuations in your blood sugar that are really high peaks and valleys throughout the day, which can cause you to be a little bit more tired and a little bit more fatigued and so on and so forth. So, just some things to consider when you're thinking about, creating your basic balanced meal. That's how you're going to do it. Now, in terms of portion size, really want to think about, okay, your protein is going to be roughly about 20 to 40 grams of protein. And again, your balanced meal, which is going to be about 2 to 3 hours before your ride. Ideally 2 to 3 hours before your ride. Um, and for that, the protein, you're looking at about a palm of protein. So a palm of protein is going to be variable for a lot of folks. For me, it's pretty small palm. But what's cool about your hand and your palm is that it's portable. It is something that you can look at for comparison while you're building a meal. And it's something that's always with you. And it is something that is respected to you and your body size. Okay. I have small hands. I am a small person. I'm a small human. So it's really awesome because, my palm is roughly about 3 to 4 ounces of cooked protein, which is really what the goal is, because 3 to 4 ounces of cooked protein is going to be right in that 20 to maybe 35, grams of protein, depending on the protein, which is awesome. And then if you're a larger individual, this is when you're going to have at least one palm, maybe even two palms, depending on your digestion and things like that and how you feel. Again, this is where experimenting really comes in handy, right? So if you're a larger individual, great. Having a couple palm sizes of protein is going to be really ideal. And that'll be closer to roughly 40 to 60 grams of protein. Okay. So again, we're all different. That sounds like a lot of protein. Chances are you might be a smaller human. And because it can be a lot of protein to digest at once. But if you're a larger human, then great. You need that. I should clip my bangs back. I'm not used to having bangs anymore. But that helps you kind of dictate, size of protein, gives you an idea of what size of protein. Now, carbs, like I mentioned earlier, protein, or excuse me, like potatoes and fruit and grain, oats, breads, cereals, all of that. Ideally, you're looking at about at least half to 1 cup or so in size. So this is easy to measure, out. You can just use a measuring cup just so you can get used to eyeballing this and knowing what this looks like. Again, you don't have to measure every single meal. That's not what the goal is for anyone unless you really want to. But just getting that idea and building that awareness around what this looks like is so key because once you establish that awareness, you're going to keep practicing that habit in all of your meals when you're building a meal. And the more you do it, the more you practice it, the more it becomes second nature. And that's what's really cool. And then a little fat. So again, avocado, nuts, seeds, oils, olives, dressings, whatever it is. Ideally, you're looking at about an ounce or two in size or around 10 to 20 grams of fat, depending on how much you need. And if you're a larger person, obviously, err on the side of more and see how that is. And if a couple hours before your ride or 3 hours, up to 3 hours before your ride is enough to digest, perfect. You found the sweet spot. Now, again, 2 to 3 hours before your ride. Now, on top of that, if you have that, you kind of want to top off the levels a little bit in terms of your energy stores and carbs and, or excuse me, your glycogen stores in your muscles. And just so you know that you have some energy to burn right out of the gate when you're mountain biking, because especially if you live here in Colorado, we have a steep uphill, steep climbs at elevation in order to get to the trail, in order to actually even start the ride. Okay, there's a lot of climbing, and then we have to earn our turns here, and it's like that in a lot of parts in the United States. But Colorado is notorious for doing this, and that's for good reason. It's mountain biking, mountain biking. So yeah, you want the energy. You want to be able to capture some energy and be able to utilize some energy pretty quickly. In order to do that, this is when about 30 upwards of 60 minutes before a bike ride, you're going to want some faster or simpler carbs. So this is what we're thinking in terms of like, hey, this is when like a gel is handy, especially if it's before a race, especially if it's before a race and it's going to be very intense. This is where a gel is really handy. Things that are a little bit simpler, like cereals or honeys or sweeteners, a little bit of maple syrup. You can have that with a little bit of a snack. So maybe like a rice ball or two of, with some maple syrup or honey or some little chocolates in there, whatever it is for you. Again, this is a create your own adventure and create whatever is appealing to you and you only, and not caring in a world what other people think. So having that little bit of carbs right before your ride is really going to help with your energy. So yeah, you can have straight carbs, especially if it's before a race or something like that. I'm a big fan of these chews. These are from Flow Formulas, endurance chews, the pineapple passion. Oh my gosh, these are so freaking good. In full disclosure, I am an ambassador for Flow Formulas, but there's a reason that I'm an ambassador for Flow Formulas. It's because they're so delicious. I will give you all the discount code if you want to try it. And I do get a little bit of kickback, but it's not much. But I believe in this so much. And I believe in the people who run this business. And I believe in their products so much. And they're very allergen friendly. So if you have any, gluten intolerance or any dairy intolerance or corn or, certain dyes or artificial colors, Flow formulas is really going to be conducive for you to consider. So, big fan of these endurance shoes. They taste so good. And I can't say I've tried every chew in the world because I haven't. That's almost impossible. It's very difficult. But I've tried a lot of chews, especially last year when I was training for Leadville. And hands down, when I tried these before they were even released, I sampled them and I was astonished at how good they are. And please keep in mind, I used to be sponsored by Scratch, and some of the training organizations, coaching organizations that I do work with, we are still sponsored by Scratch. I have clients who eat these and like them just as much. The thing with these is, okay, so this is going to be about 19 grams of carbs for half of this. So again, a full package is about 40 grams of carbs. So this is where it pays to look at the nutrition label, okay, and really get keen on the nutrition label. Because if you look at this and you're like, oh, 19 carbs, great. That's not, 30 grams. Fine, you can have two. Because if you look at the serving size, it's two servings per package, and it's about five pieces, so about 25 grams. And five pieces. These have a little bit of sugar on them, just kind of make them not stick. And these do as well, but just really good. I find I digest this a lot better. But again, one serving per container for this, for the endurance chews, and it's 34 grams. Okay, so it's different. So this is going to have more carbohydrates in a serving. So five chews, and it's really easy to chew. I find these are actually less chewy than other brands like Scratch and things like that. Stingers, honey stinger makes a great chew. These are just ideas of things for you to have right before a workout or right before your bike ride, rather, because it will help you with that, just topping off the stores for glycogen, making you feel good and allowing you to have some immediate energy right out of the gate. Okay. So something to think about. Think about what you like. I'm also a fan of some graham cereal or cinnamon crunch cereal. It's like the Cascadian Farms version. Just a little bit of that, a little bit of milk. It's fine. I use Fairlife milk, and that has a little bit of protein because, again, something you want to consider. So before a race, it's really great to have some simple carbs that are just simple carbs. Doesn't have any protein or, fats in these things, and that's totally fine. But if you're looking at just a regular ride and you're not really going to be like pushing it hard, you don't have to do straight carbs. You can mix it with a little bit of protein, a little bit of like 5, 10 grams protein, whatever, just to kind of help again with that blood sugar and balancing that blood sugar and keeping you from crashing with those ups and downs. So this is where we're thinking about Greek or Icelandic yogurt. That's going to be really helpful because that has a little bit of protein, does have some carbs in it. You can add a little bit of berries to it or whatever fruit you like, bananas, add a little bit of honey, whatever it is for you. Again, that's just an idea. You can have a piece of toast. I know, right? Registered dietitians are real big fans of, hey, have a piece of toast, white piece of toast. It can be grainy if you want it to be. If again, the key here is to experiment to see what doesn't mess up your digestive system right before a ride or a race. This is key, super key, because this is what's going to make it personalized for you. Okay. So we talked about right before your ride and 2 to 3 hours before your ride. Now we're talking about during your ride. So during your ride, if your ride is about an hour and a half or longer. So 90 minutes or longer. This is when it's going to be really ideal for you to stay on top of replenishing your carbohydrate burns because you're actively on a bike ride, you're actively burning through your glycogen stores in your muscles once you're pedaling and working hard, right? So you want to actively replenish those stores as you're riding, but you don't want to wait 2 hours into a ride or 3 hours into a ride or 4 or 5 hours into a ride if it's long distance. Because at that point, you have no more stores. You have nothing to burn. Your body can burn fat, but it's an incredibly inefficient system for burning fuel to utilize on a bike ride, unless you're going incredibly slow. But if you're mountain biking, that's going to be an exception. So if you're going slow and it's more of an endurance pace, yeah, that might be a little bit more of an exception. But if you're going faster and you're really holding tempo, threshold, VO2, you have some VO2, you have some climbs that you're doing that are really intense mixed in. If it's like a typical mountain bike ride, then you're going to be utilizing carbohydrates. Okay. So this is where about every 45 minutes, if the bike ride's an hour and a half or longer, and you know it going in, about starting at about minute 45 or so, this is when you're going to want to start to replenish your carbohydrates every 30 minutes to 60 minutes. So what we suggest is if you know how many calories you burn on average because you have a wearable device like a Garmin or an Apple Watch or something like that, that's going to be a fantastic tool for you to use. Look at some of your previous rides, right? Doesn't even have to be on the same trail system. I mean, that would be great. That would be ideal if it is on the same trail system that you're riding. But look at your previous rides. See how many calories you're burning on average in an hour. And then you're going to want to aim, usually, just a ballpark, try to replenish about 50% of that caloric burn every hour that you're riding. So if you burn on average 500 calories an hour, then you should be trying to replenish 250 calories per hour of mostly carbohydrates because that's what's going to keep your muscles going and really keep you topping off your muscle glycogen stores as best as possible so you can keep going and keep burning and keep riding because that's the whole goal, right? It was we want to feel strong and effective and powerful on those climbs and on the bike and on the descents because we don't want to feel loopy and bonking once we've done all the climbs and we've earned our turns and then we have to descend, right? Especially if it's an out and back trail that you're on. You don't want to feel like hell when you're climbing or when you're descending because that puts you at risk of potentially crashing or making just bad judgments all around. And that can obviously impact your safety. And that's not what we want, right? Because you've already put in the strength work, you've already put in the power work. And now we want you to be able to really uh, go downhill safely and enjoy the downhill because the downhill's a blast, right? At least for most people. So generally, if it's about 500 calories that you're burning on an hour, just as an example, and you're trying to replenish about 250 calories worth per hour, ideally, I would say most people are going to need about 30 grams of carbs to 90 grams of carbs per hour. Depends on how lean you are, depends on how hard you're working, depends on how much did you eat? Depends on the intensity. It depends on temperature and climate and weather conditions. It depends on altitude. The higher you are, friends, the more your body is going to be demanding, or the more the altitude's going to be demanding on your body to replenish those carbs and those hydration stores and electrolyte stores and all of that. All right. So you have to consider that. It's one reason it's so important for us here in Colorado, especially if we're riding up 12,000-foot peaks and 14,000-foot peaks. We've got to make sure we stay on top of our fuel. And I'm saying this with emphasis because it's so incredibly important, okay? And I know for some of you on the program, you're climbing up the Swiss Alps. You're climbing in Europe. And those mountains are also no joke. Parts of Washington are also really high. Parts of Canada for some of you also really high. And you have really strong elevation gain and you're already at elevation, you're already at a higher altitude. So you want to respect that. So just as a heads up, if you do find that you feel a little bit more like hell and you're working harder and you're burning, you feel like you're burning fuel a little bit harder at elevation, it's because you are friends. And I commend you on being so aware of how your body feels. Okay. So take those things into consideration. But I suggest always starting with about 30 grams per hour, seeing how that feels. Now, I will say sometimes like eating a whole thing of these at once might not be so great for most people. So this is where you're probably going to want to start having every 30 minutes, have half of it. So eating two of these, super easy because especially these, they're easy to chew. Have two of these and then have the other three like at minute 60. You see what I'm saying? So ideally, you want to break up your hourly goal, not have it all at once, but have it throughout that hour. Okay. Some people, this doesn't work for them. I will say most people that I work with, including myself, it does work for them. Again, you have to experiment. If you haven't picked up yet on the theme of the day, it is for you to experiment and see what works well for you. Okay. Let me okay, good. I'm not gonna back up on Milo. I'm really close to the screen because he fell asleep behind me earlier and I couldn't back up. Okay, so to help with digestion, again, break up the snack throughout the hour if you can into smaller portions. Carbs that have more fiber are going to be considered more complex and they require longer to digest. And it can also cause a little bit of stomach upset. So because you're having a little bit of like just fibrous food, it takes up more room in your stomach. Cases of fiber, I don't have a ton here, but I will say that these Enduro bites do have a couple of grams of fiber, but that's not really a ton. This whole package has about 40 grams, right? Yeah, 40, testing my memory here. This whole package, it has 2 bars in it. Okay, so it's not that big. It's about the size of my palm, smaller than that. Remember, I have small hands. But Enduro Bites, these are made with Whole Foods ingredients. I know the person who makes them in Colorado Springs, such a stand-up dude. He runs it. His name's Brian. Very cool scientist guy. We've nerded out on nutrition together. We've done some videos together. But highly recommend, again, good business to support. They ship anywhere in the States. I'm actually not sure about shipping worldwide. I am not quite sure, but highly recommend checking them out. They are going to have a little bit of fiber, but this is really ideal for folks who are really trying to manage the blood sugar a little bit more effectively and don't mind chewing a little bit. These are soft. They don't freeze too. So these are really great for snowing and ski boarding. They don't freeze in your pocket. one of the few snacks that do not freeze in your pocket. Highly recommend trying them out, but there are two bars in here. So they're already cut in half. So there you go. And what's cool is, especially before races, I will go ahead and take a knife and cut it into quarters because it is so easy to chew. Just a small little quarter here. I mean, look how small that is. Pop it in your mouth. You can have it in your sweaty jacket or your sweaty little jersey, whatever you want. Hey, it's just extra salt, right? A little extra sodium. These are fantastic, but these do have a little bit of fiber, so it helps kind of manage your blood sugar, which is really good, especially if you do find you're a little sensitive to gels and things that are straight carbohydrates and just simpler carbs, easier to digest. These can really go through you pretty quickly. So again, just something to consider. There are some things that do have fiber in it. You can also be like some folks who commented in the group chat in the app and have said, "Hey, Jen, dude, I bring some bean burritos." If you want that little fart blaster on those jumps and kickers, by all means, eat what you want. See, and what's cool is these folks know what works for them. How? Because they've experimented. They've done the work. They know that bean burritos are fine and it actually is okay, right? And they also have Rice Krispie treats, for example, that they have. So they have simpler carbs as well as the more complex carbs. Again, through experimentation, they know what works for them. All right. So sorry, I just got a text. I cannot address it. Anyways, so the other thing is, let's see, simpler carbs. I talked about that. They're a little bit more sugary. They're sweeter. They're also white rice and whatnot, white breads, candies, sport nutrition foods. These are going to be easier to digest. The more complex things are going to be a little bit more complex to digest, so they're going to have fiber. This will take a little bit more to digest, but usually doesn't impact folks' digestion, okay? Versus this, which is going to be simpler. Okay, so when consuming sports nutrition products, look at the label and select things that are closer to a 2-to-1 ratio of maltodextrin to fructose, because this does optimize absorption and does reduce the risk of stomach upset. This is one reason why sometimes scratch can upset folks' stomach, especially after using it for a duration of time. Their ratios are a little off. And this is another reason why I'm usually a bit more of a fan of flow formulas because their ratio is a lot more ideal to you following this and not having that sugar bomb because the thing is fructose simpler carb, right? Now maltodextrin, however, is going to have a little bit more of a kind of like a a starchiness to it, okay? This is what's going to slow down the absorption of the carbs. So it's going to help you prevent you from like completely crashing and having a blood sugar crash. Um, so hold on a second. Getting a text from the partner here. I had to let her know as a reminder, like, hey, psst, I'm on schedule. Okay. Just something to think about. Now, this is going to be a little complex, but again, we're going to the next step. If you're ready to go to the next step, great. This is when you're going to start to get products that have this ratio in it, maltodextrin to fructose. Okay. Again, can't emphasize it enough. They're really not paying me to do this. I like willingly wanted to be an ambassador for them for a reason because it works. Flow formulas works. I was already using flow formulas, through Go for Graham, which is a team that I'm on locally that supports mental health and things like that, and shreds the stigma on mental health and talking about mental health. But this helps so much. This blueberry agave, so good, such a good taste, and it smells really good. I spilled some in my car, and it kind of acts as an air freshener right now. It smells really good. But anyways, a portion of this, so 2 scoops is going to be 60 grams of carbs because this is what they call 60-90. So during training rides, great, you're going to aim for about 60 grams of carbs per hour roughly. While racing, this is when you're going to be maybe in the higher end, so 90 grams. So this is going to be race fuel. This is what's called their endurance. Mix. It's like an endurance hydration mix. So it does have some sodium and things like that in here. It does also have, of course, carbohydrates. So we're looking at 60 grams of carbs for 2 scoops, and it does have 390 milligrams rather, not grams. Oh my God, 390 milligrams of sodium. It does have a little bit of potassium and things like that. Not so much to kind of mark, but it gives you, an idea of like, hey, if you're training for 60, training and you need 60 grams of carbs, do 2 scoops. If you need 3 scoops to do 90 grams of carbs. Pretty simple, right? Mix it with water, let it kind of dissolve, do its thing, keep mixing it, keep shaking it in your water bottle. Boom. You have something that's very easy to digest, doesn't upset your stomach, and it also really prevents any type of bonking because of that rise and fall of your blood sugar, right? So something to think about. Again, maltodextrin is what is going to help with uh, that absorption and ability to kind of utilize a little bit more of um how do I explain it? Utilize a simpler carb, but without completely crashing. All right. Because it does have the maltodextrin in it. Not every brand has that. Okay. Perfect case in point. I did Leadville on these. I did a lot of races on Never Second. I consumed a lot of Never Second, not a lot, but a fair amount of Never Second during some training rides to make sure I was okay with it. And then also during the races that I did. I did Never Second. I also did Carbo Rocket. Carbo Rocket has really good ratios. They're another great one and a great company, you know. Um, I will say this one, so it's 30 grams of carbs, but then it does have maltodextrin in it. So that's a plus. I This is really hard to read for someone who's a little struggly with eyes because it's white font on green. I should have picked the berry one because it's a darker font. So I apologize. I can't really see what the ratio is, but also Never Second is fantastic. They use science, they use research to really create their things. The one thing, the other reason I do like Flow formulas is because they come in reusable containers. So you can buy some of these tubes. They're real eco-friendly. That's really cool. And I forgot to grab my little gel thing. So they have reusable flasks that you can do, um, your gels in, so you can make that. Uh, how am I getting, Apple, I'm getting a lot of pop-ups and I have them all turned off, but obviously I don't. But just program updates, you know how it is. But this is fantastic because what's cool is this is 90 grams of carbs right here. Okay. So as long as you have an empty water bottle with just liquid, just water, which you can have during races, right? You at the water stations, aid stations, fill it up with water, put in one of these. And what's cool is save it, or you can recycle it because these are recyclable, but you can save it and then fill it up from your bag and then use that. And what's cool is these fit in your little jersey pockets if you're wearing spandex, a little lycra. It fits in your jersey pockets, also fits in your packs. All of that's fantastic. I love it. I can't recommend them enough. But again, Never Second's also really good. Fuel is also really good. Precision Fuel is also really good. This little chew has 30 grams, and this is actually a really good flavor. It's mint and lemon. And I found I really liked the mint and embraced that flavor a lot because I was eating sugary substances, and mint kind of helped calm down my stomach a little bit because I was eating a little bit more of like sugary stuff. So just some things I'm throwing out here. And then, of course, we do have some good old honey stingers. I'm a strip waffle fanatic because I want to mix things up. All right. I want to mix things up. I can use flow formulas endlessly throughout the day. It's totally fine, but I do like some real food. I do like to have some things that I'm chewing on as well, or in addition to this. So what I usually do is I'll alternate. All right, alternate. I'll do some chews first hour, then I'll do my drink mix, second hour, and I'll pretty much alternate. And then about usually 2, 3 hours in, I'll eat some real food. Usually it's a fig Newton or a couple fig Newtons in addition to like my drink mix, just to give you some ideas. Okay. But again, you want to stay on top of it and you want to start fueling earlier than you think. And if you've gotten hungry or if you start to feel like you're fading, you have waited too long, friend. You have waited too long. So, got to stay on top of that. Again, this is when you want to experiment. All right, after the ride, this is when you want to replenish your muscle glycogen stores because you've already burned through them, you've lost those carbs, you've already utilized all of that. And now you want to replenish them so that way you can recover really well for that day and sleep well that night. And then also feel like if you're going to train the next day or the day after that, you feel like you have replenished and recovered effectively going forward. So, this is where, hey, getting in some carbs and getting a little bit of protein is going to be ideal. This is when, depending on your ability to digest after a bike ride, this is when you should have a balanced meal like we talked about earlier, where you do have that protein, you do have some carbs. Again, 20 to 40 grams of protein, maybe even upwards of 60 grams of protein if you're a larger individual. So Palmer 2 of protein, And then carbs, this is what we're thinking: rice, potatoes, fruits, things like that, grains. Again, half cup to one whole cup or more in size, depending on what you need. These are suggested minimums. Please know that people might need more than this, and that might be ideal for some people, maybe not for you, and that's totally fine. But even having just a little bit of protein, even if it's just like 10 grams mixed with a carb of at least 20 grams, that's going to be ideal. All right. You want to kind of have uh, just those are bare minimums. I know some folks are talking about how, like, hey, no, like have 10 grams of protein plus like 40 grams of carbs. Great, do that. I know some folks had talked about the scratch recovery mix, the horchata. Horchata flavor is really good. Recovery mix, fantastic. Flow Formulas also makes a recovery mix. It is whey free. Um, it is free of whey is a better way for me to word that. It's free of, dairy products and things like that. It's worth trying. But getting keen and getting dialed and locked in on what ratios and what snacks work for you is going to be key in all this. But this is just the structure from which to create those meals and experiment from them accordingly. Okay. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of an idea on kind of how to do this, how to structure it, how to make it work for you. But it's going to be some experimentation. I will give you the discount code. It is Gen 15, JEN 15. Believe it's for at least 15% off your first purchase and really any preceding purchases after that, if I'm not mistaken. If you want to try some Flow Formulas. But yeah, go to Flow Formulas. I'll link it in the notes here for the YouTube video so that we can give it a try. And let me know what you think. I do want to end with saying again, I know it sounds like I'm the biggest fangirl of Flow Formulas, but it's because I am. It's because their stuff just tastes so good. Okay. Uh, if you're looking for a really good hydration mix, electrolyte replacement mix, friends, again, I tried so many. I tried Tailwind. Uh, I tried Stinger. I tried Never Seconds. All of them. They're good, but I'm not kidding you. From the first sip, especially after you let it dissolve a little bit in your water, you shake it up in your water bottle, let it dissolve a little bit. It is so good. This passion fruit, God, it's like really good. And again, electrolytes. And it does give you instructions. One thing I love about them, they're one of the few companies that actually charts it out here. Like, hey, if you do want to like experiment and see what your sweat rate loss is, or sweat loss rate rather, is it might involve like weighing yourself just so you can kind of become aware, right? They give instructions on like, hey, if this is your sweat loss or sweat loss rate, whatever it is, then great. This is how many scoops you should have to replenish that, and it's fantastic. I mean, I just love it. I can't believe I don't know. It's made in Colorado. It's made actually right down the street here in Denver, and I don't know how else to say this, and this is the first time I've been an ambassador of any company. I mean, Endurabites, like Brian at Endurabites, he gave me a discount code to give you all just so you can try them. But he did that, just out of the nicest of his soul. But I only got that in return because I wrote for him, things like that. It was kind of a quid pro quo because we're both small businesses and we want to support one another since we have the same philosophical approaches. But with Flow Formulas, they're legitimately the first company I have chosen to be an ambassador of that is a nutrition company. And it's because I believe in their products so much and because over the 15 plus years, going on 20 years now that I've been coaching folks, seeing the rate of allergies kind of become a little bit more present just because doctors know how to test for these things and folks know how to actually like learn and do elimination diets and kind of learn to see what they are allergic or sensitive to, not sensitive to, what they're allergic to. I am seeing more and more folks who do have a gluten intolerance or a dairy intolerance, especially after certain viral infections. That just happens. It can happen after you get flu or COVID or what have you. But knowing these things, and I want it to align with Flow Formulas because I need it to have something that I can have for you all to try. Okay, because I believe in it so much. I believe in many products, but I wholeheartedly believe in Flow Formulas. Just give it a try. And again, experimenting. That is going to be the point, is experimenting. You can go onto the feed.com and try some things. You can try a plethora of things. and, just sample some things and buy like a hodgepodge bag of some stuff, and that will work as well. So whatever works for you, just do it. But if you want to do flow formulas, put in the code Gen15 and then I'll give you a discount. I do occasionally also have larger discounts that I can give to friends and family. So just something to think about. But hopefully this helped you kind of know and learn visually and audibly, just, instead of just reading it in the app, because I know we all learn differently. But yeah, hopefully this helped you learn kind of how to fuel effectively before, during, and after your rides. That way you can feel like you are shredding strong. All right, fams, I am out. I will let you know what date we are going to be doing our May chat. Since things are solidifying now with mountain bike season, things were kind of up in the air for the last few weeks, and then I was sick, and then I had this weird thing with my colonoscopy happen. So sorry about this being just a couple weeks or a few weeks late, but we did it. We did it. We did it. We did it. And I appreciate you being patient, and I'll go ahead and get Maze on the books. I hope you all have a great start to the riding season and enjoy some dry dirt soon. Much love to you all. See you later.